Welcome back to another episode of It's All Been Trekked Before. This time, it's Metamorphosis. Nope, no Kafka, but you might be able to find some in there. You're probably better at this literature stuff than I am. Anyway, speaking of literature, the Quarterly Book Club. They're in the middle of it now. They're books, you can read them anytime, and they're podcasts, you can listen to them anytime. Go check them out, see the books they're reading, read the books, see if you agree, see if you have some similar thoughts they do. The Quarterly Book Club, all part of the IABD Presents network. IABDpresents.com. Also, another way to support us, patreon.com/IABD. Go there. You can get special bonus stuff, cool stuff that non-contributors don't get. Go there, check it out. Doesn't take much to become VIP. So please go check that out, patreon.com/IABD. Speaking of metamorphosis, you might have noticed this podcast is going through a bit of a metamorphosis lately, and that's all thanks, or big thanks, to our editors, David Huff and Ando Schaefer. Thanks, guys. And now, we're going through a metamorphosis on It's All Been Trekked Before.
Welcome out to another episode of It's All Been Trekked Before. We have many of your normal hosts here.
This is Steven.
This is Keith.
Jimmy-Jerome. And for female energy, we have Zoe. So this week, we're talking about Metamorphosis.
Yeah.
Not based on the book by Kafka.
Not the Kafka book, no.
No, this is a Star Trek story. First impressions.
We talked a little bit off mic, obviously. I didn't remember a ton about this, and even when I was like going back and looking at Wikipedia and Star Trek Wikia, it still wasn't making a huge impression on me. I had a lot of dark windows on it that I couldn't remember, but yeah, I liked it a lot more than I thought, than I remembered. It's a different kind of episode because it's really low key. There's obviously a conflict and several conflicts going on. We don't even have the stinging music. We definitely have music that was made just for this episode.
Yeah.
A lot of the lovey-dovey music, for lack of a better term. But
we didn't get Ruth's theme.
We did not. Not. But the composer for this made some new music. But I thought there were some good sci-fi concepts here too. Mm-hmm. And also a lot of Star Trek history is in this episode.
So. It sure is. Did they establish in this? Yeah, they established what he's famous for in this episode.
Yeah.
Keith, your first impressions.
Well, I was kind of disappointed because there weren't any butterflies in it, and I wore my Blue Morpho t-shirt.
Oh, why'd you think
they
were
true.
Oh, okay.
The Metamorphosis.
Kafka. Yes.
It's actually from the Venture Brothers. But
well, Chekhov wasn't even in this episode. Is Kafka Russian?
I think Czechoslovakian, I think.
Oh, okay, never mind. I was going to say, if Chekhov was in here, he could have made some comment about... Although I don't even know if Metamorphosis was... I don't even know what year it was written.
We're completely wrong. We're just going to cut all this.
Kafka was German.
And
he died in 1924, so it was definitely written before this episode.
Yes.
But yeah, this had nothing to do with... Was it a butterfly? I thought
he was born in Prague.
Well, that was. I'm just saying in general the term metamorphosis was referred like cocoon, like Gene Alcoon.
This says he was born in Prague, though. So
okay.
Points for that. I get something for that.
Something.
Attaboy.
But in seriousness, it was fine. It was...
not one of the best episodes ever, but not terrible.
It was entertaining.
Mm-hmm. I remember being really bored by it before. I don't know why. I was probably in high school when I watched it. This time around, I was getting more of the concepts.
Yeah.
And some of the, non-humanness of things and the spirit of humanity, and that was much more interesting to me. And then I also was just the whole time comparing that character to James Cromwell and trying to justify if they were...
Oh, right. Yeah.
How, were they faithful enough that they could conceivably be two versions of the same character? And my conclusion is... There were moments in this where he got kind of ticked off and stuff, where I was like, I see James Cromwell's version from Star Trek First Contact, the movie, Next Generation movie,
I see.
Where we see a younger, older Cochrane. He was older, but it was before he went and got lost in space and became this Cochrane. And it was his first warp flight.
Interesting.
That's right, yeah.
And so, and he was a drunk and everything. And so part of me was like, well, he'd be more surly. But then I'm like, he's been there for 150 years.
Yeah,
he's been in forced sobriety.
Yeah.
He's had time to reflect. He's been emotionally fulfilled by this cloud. Okay, maybe it's the same guy.
Yeah.
He could have changed a lot in 150 years.
That's true, yeah.
But there were moments of that temper that I was like, okay, there's the seed that James Cromwell latched onto. I don't know if you watched this episode or not, but I was trying to, from Star Trek history perspective.
Sure.
Because those are the I think the only 2 times they've depicted Zefram Cochrane.
I think so. I know he's referenced in a lot of novels and stuff. But
of course.
Some other stuff. But.
And I know in Enterprise they had a picture of him because it was after his lifetime. I think they mentioned that he had gone missing or something, but it was the James Cromwell version they pictured, which made sense because this version, he was older than this when he invented the warp drive. He aged backwards.
Oh.
They say he was 35 here.
Oh, that's right.
He was older than that
because
when
he's
the first warp.
That's right. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it would make sense they would picture James Cromwell and not this guy.
I wonder how.
This guy being Glenn Corbett.
Yeah. Who I think is pretty good in the episode actually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He fits the bill of a guy who would be the guy. I mean, it was a time with the right stuff and John Glenn and those guys.
Yeah.
And he feels like a guy who would fit that mold as far as a space explorer.
Agreed.
And then after 150 years on a planetoid, he gets softened. It turns out planetoid is an asteroid. So yeah, to your point, that's the way I envision it, was just like a rolling
rock.
Yeah, not a. It looked just like a planet.
Right.
So I don't know why they call it a planetoid. I'd rather. Although I guess maybe some of the idea might be that it's the companion has created this image, or it actually is more planet.
Oh, when I just looked up Zefram Cochrane, it reminded me Riker quotes Cochrane to him in that movie.
Oh.
Where he says, someone once said, "Don't try to be a great man, just be a man and let history make its own judgments." At the time, Cochrane's like, "That's a little bull, blah, blah, blah," because he's angry and drunk. And then he's like, "Who said that?" And Riker's like, "You, 10 years from now." Which reminded me that there was definitely going to be evolution of this character before he even got to that planet.
Yes.
So he didn't stay the grumpy drunk once he started to explore things. I just thought that was worth mentioning, because there was definitely... Yeah, they mentioned First Contact, and because he was the first human to meet an alien species, the Vulcans,
and I will get more into this later, but I almost feel like it's another one of those episodes where there's so many little stories that could have gone off and examined a little more, and they don't. And again, we talk about the limits of 48 minutes and all that stuff, episodic television. But yeah, if this was 90 minutes, it could have been so much richer and all that stuff. But right away, she's got Staccaro's disease, whatever that is, and I think that's what is that. What?
I don't. I think you're talking about Nancy Hedford.
Nancy Hedford, yeah, another
played by Elizabeth Rogers.
Oh no, it was Eleanor Donahue.
Oh, this is Elizabeth.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Elizabeth Rogers is the companion.
She's the companion's voice.
We'll talk about that in a second. Eleanor Donahue. Sorry, I had one female guest actress open. I did not look at the other one.
Yes.
Eleanor Donahue, best known for Father Knows Best.
Yes.
Pretty Woman.
Yeah.
Freddy's Dead. The Final Nightmare.
Did a lot of TV guest spots.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I made a note of, I thought she was in this episode a lot more. And then I forgot that at the end because I thought the companion enters are just for like a couple minutes and we're out, but it's extended, so that makes more sense. I also thought, and this is a Mad Lab only reference for Columbus, Ohio, she had kind of a Melissa Bear vibe that I never picked up on before because I didn't know Melissa Bear 40 years ago. In fact, Melissa Bear probably wasn't alive 40 years ago. So
will Melissa Bear listen to this podcast and appreciate the shout out?
No.
Okay.
She'd appreciate the shout out, but she won't be listening.
Maybe we'll have to tag her in the
There you
go. It was interesting. Nancy Hedford, that character, she was very utilitarian. She was there for a specific purpose this episode. She didn't get a lot of development as a character.
That was the hard part, and I think we kind of snickered about it a little bit, but she immediately, and again, I don't know what Staccaro's disease does, but it apparently makes you very emotional and
run a fever.
You sweat a lot. And this is another one of those where, again, if you just had a little more time.
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden she's talking about, I've never been loved before. I've never been in love. What have I done with my life? And it's like, I wish we could have, instead of it having to be her blurting it out in 20 seconds to McCoy, I wish there had been a little more setup for that. But, beggars can't be choosers. So, she kind of has to jump in that, which makes it a convenient thing for the ending of the companion. But I feel like Hedford gets screwed here because she didn't ask for this fight.
But they made it pretty clear that she was still conscious and part of the deal.
True.
Like the Cloud, it seemed like the Cloud basically offered her a choice.
And I guess that's
and said, share your body and I'll save you.
And I guess that's the thing of, again, if she had more time to explain, I've kind of, not that I've wasted my life, but I've been a workaholic or whatever, and I've never experienced love and whatever. I don't know. It's like I'm talking like Scrooge of Christmas Past, but if she'd had a little more of that, then it's like, okay, this is her one chance at love.
Right.
She's going to take it or whatever. But she was also another really pushy, crabby ambassador. Maybe that's the way diplomats are. Maybe that's how they get deals made. I don't know.
Not usually.
I don't think
I was
so
going to
either.
ask, like, what her affiliation with Starfleet was exactly.
She was a diplomat. She was going to broker peace between two factions at war.
But not, like, trained in an academy or something like that.
She wasn't Starfleet, no.
Okay.
No.
Because otherwise, yeah, she seemed a little ambassador-y.
Yes.
Well, she was an ambassador,
Yeah.
so that makes sense.
Yeah.
I hope she would be ambassador-y. I did enjoy the line at the end, like, oh, there's another woman that can save that planet from war.
Yeah.
It was such a
Again,
cheesy...
I tried to explain it away with it's an entire planet of women. They won't let a man come there to
Or maybe it's an entire planet of man. They're not going to listen to another man.
That's true, too. Send us woman. Yeah.
Although, apparently, gender is a universal constant, which is
That was
ridiculous.
That was a weird one.
That's more than a weird one, because the Andorians are one of the founders of the Federation with the humans and the Vulcans, and they're, what, a 4-gender species?
Yeah.
So to just say that it's a universal constant.
Well, and that's part of the frustration with this episode is it introduces this idea of love between this almost nondescript species and humans, and then it almost twists it and says, well, if you become human, then you can actually understand love, which really what the initial message is, no, this creature understands love.
Yeah.
It might not know the term love or that it's in love, but it clearly loves Cochrane. I mean, Kirk and Spock and those guys clearly say that. And then it kind of cops out a little bit.
It felt like it had to be a woman for Cochrane to love.
Right.
It itself could love without needing those predators.
And maybe that's a more...
But also had to be a woman
better
for
take.
the TV to be allowed to show it.
Right.
Then. So they weren't going to be able to get that story to fly if they weren't like, oh, but it's totally a girl cloud. Don't worry about it.
Well, they made that very
got to
clear.
make sure.
Yes.
So the other thing about that was strange to me, of course, about the universal translator.
Yes.
They're also implying that it is somehow able to adjust itself, adjust the voice to sound like it would think the creature would sound.
The universal translator, the way I understand it, it's a very sophisticated piece of equipment. And cadence and tone and that kind of thing are really important to communicate.
Yeah, since you mentioned it, it does do that. So
right.
Yeah.
And so I feel like 300 years from now, the universal translator should take those things into account too.
I mean, it's a little presumptuous to say it's universal, but hey, you know what?
Well, I mean, Kirk even said it's not, and nothing's 100% efficient.
Right. And he did say they've gone to 1,000 planets,
Yeah.
so he did acknowledge.
Yeah. And what happened as soon as they left the planet was the cloud was like, no, I didn't say love, I meant eat. I'm going to eat you. I just didn't have a mouth before, now I do. Dinner time.
Well, I think it's good they stayed there because I think her echoey voice would have been an issue whenever they went to other planets. Like, what is going on with her voice? Why is it?
Oh, don't worry about her. She's just inhabited by a cloud.
She's got a cold.
Okay, so a couple things there. I was hoping they were kind of hammered the point home. Maybe I was a little too distracted or something about exactly how that was supposed to work. So the first part of it, why they had to stay on the planet physically if she was going to be in the human body.
Yeah.
The cloud, like, they said something about her energy, life essence or whatever,
comes from the
depending on the
planet.
planet.
Right.
Which I felt like was the same whether she's in the body or not.
Right.
But she would have been immortal that way.
Right.
So then
If she stayed in them.
I've got a lot of points wrapped up into this whole issue, actually.
Okay.
Kind of circling back to that agreement, supposedly, that Hedford had.
Yeah.
They seem to take that on faith pretty quickly.
Sure.
That it was like, oh, sure, this was consensual. Let's go.
Well,
yeah.
And
in this era, they believe the best of people.
so
Cochrane was from the backwards era, where he's still racist.
Well,
how did it become where suddenly the woman is like, I guess the body has to stay here forever with me? Obviously, she could have repaired it enough to let her get on the shuttle and go about her way after that, and maybe
bring peace to
separate.
another planet.
Is it a permanent joining? What was the nature of it? Why
It
did?
seemed pretty permanent.
Yeah. So.
Because the cloud gave up her immortality to be in her.
That was one of my notes. Was I feel like this episode immortality is underrated. Overrated? Death. Oh, it's great to die. You'll love it when it gets here. It's like, no!
To die would be a great adventure. They never had too much Peter Pan.
It's weird because the episode pretty much starts with Cochrane saying, I was 87, I was tired.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And he basically went off to die.
To kill himself.
Yeah.
And then got saved, and he's grateful to her, and he lives on another 150 years. So maybe immortality isn't so terrible.
But then he
It's
seemed to be bored of the 150 years.
Sure.
Right.
But that's because you're on a planetoid with a
couldn't do
companion
anything.
and all that. But
there wasn't anything.
There's
I know.
Oh, God.
Honestly, the general premise made me think of like Amelia Earhart or somebody, like the famous pilot that just disappeared and we never found out. Although, I believe in Voyager they do find Amelia Earhart, so we'll get around to that. But this was the same kind of concept.
Yeah.
That like this very famous explorer, pioneer, goes missing.
So what year would it have been around 150 years before that?
Well, Star Trek's 2275-ish.
Yeah,
so like 2125-ish.
That was my thought is Zefram
He was born in
Cochrane.
2030.
I was going to say, he's born
Star
very
Trek
soon,
Encyclopedia.
so yeah.
So 85, that would have been around 2115 or so.
Which I think, I was thinking like, well, 87, 100 years from now, if we survive the next 2.5 years, 3.5 years, I feel like the life expectancy will expand. But on another level, though, an 87-year-old person right now, they wouldn't be flying around the galaxy. So, but I think it's not an 87-year-old like we envision now.
But keep in mind that Cochrane lived through World War III in Star Trek history.
So
a quarter of the world's population was dead. Earth was set back a lot.
Hmm.
And then, of course, they had first contact with the Vulcans, but for decades the Vulcans were very guard on their technology and didn't want to help them progress. So,
well, wasn't Cochrane the one who had the first contact with the Vulcans?
Yes, but in Enterprise they addressed that even after that first contact, the Vulcans really didn't want to share technology or anything. They wanted humans to figure it out on their own, so humans still progressed kind of slowly for a while. So in that era, I could see 87 being old, but like his generation being the last generation that 87 was.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, you definitely picked up on why I was asking what time it was, because 87 years, and also their reaction, the crew of him saying 87 was old for him. They weren't like, well, it's not anymore, wow, or anything, but So
I mean, we know McCoy lives to like 130 or more when he guest stars on Next Gen.
Oh yeah.
So clearly they get over that real quick. In the Next Gen book set after the series, their new first officer after Riker is a 200-year-old human, which I always thought was interesting.
Yeah. So
clearly they're Cochran aging.
It makes sense. Yeah. And I do like the aspect of Cochrane, this guy who discovered the warp, thing, being amazed by the advances that have happened since then.
Yeah.
And the idea that things are constantly changing. There's definitely a generational and a historical thing of, things are constantly, which was the message of Star Trek. So I thought that was a cool aspect of the episode too.
I just laughed when Spock was like, I'm going to show him the engines, and I'm like, yeah, he invented those engines.
Right.
Because warp drive really didn't make many significant advances between his time and original series.
Well, I figured it was just a way to keep him busy too.
Yeah, it was, but I don't know why Spock didn't recognize him though. I feel like Spock would have seen pictures of him and remembered. I get why Kirk and McCoy, it took him a minute, but McCoy had a great moment when the Cloud was trying to kill Kirk and Spock. He was just like, let him go!
Yeah.
I was cracking up.
Wait, would they recognize him being that young, though? I mean,
I would assume Spock
that
had
was
seen
my
pictures throughout, but maybe not.
Yeah.
Or, you don't really expect to find him 150 years after his assumed death.
Right.
So you'd think...
How would Spock have been there? Like, would he have been alive back
for first contact? No.
No, for here, like, currently. Would he have been alive for Cochrane to have been 87 or whatever? So, okay.
No, Spock's the close to age with the rest of the crew.
Oh, all right.
He's not super old. In TNG, he's like 200 or something. Let's talk about the voice of the Cloud, Elizabeth Rogers.
One of your favorite.
I looked up who she was now, and now I remember why I didn't like her. She was White Uhura.
Correct.
Lieutenant Palmer. In the Doomsday Machine with Matt Deckard.
Yeah.
Yes.
I just didn't like her because I wanted Uhura back.
Speaking of which, we don't get a lot of Uhura, but she's awesome in this episode.
Sure.
Her line about "It's a big galaxy, Mr. Scott" is just the look on her face and the way she delivers is so great.
Yeah.
The Scotty Sulu Uhura scene, which was just really one scene in the middle of the episode. When we do Universe Journey, I like to check back in on the crew on the ship, but I thought I didn't remember Star Trek doing that, so I was like, oh, I'm doing something different.
Yeah.
And then I'm watching this, and I'm like, oh, no, I was not doing something different. They did it too.
Well, and this was one of the episodes, I don't know if it's the longest, but it's one of the longest that Kirk is on the Enterprise. They don't show the Enterprise.
He's on the Enterprise the whole thing.
Yeah, exactly, yeah, that's it, yeah.
Till the very end.
So, which I thought was pretty cool.
They were in the Shellcraft Galileo again, which must have been repaired after the Galileo 7.
Yeah, and I was wondering, what's the range on a shuttlecraft? Because it seems like it should be
They took it along.
Yeah.
Well, their shuttlecraft seemed to be warp-equipped.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah.
And, of course, it makes sense that to transfer the ambassador, you send the captain, the first officer, and the chief medical officer. Granted, she's sick, so Bones should probably be there. But why not have Sulu,
McCoy, and a security officer?
Yeah.
Round up to 7.
Absolutely.
We are not going to stop beating that dead horse because they're not going to. So as long as they keep sending Kirk and Spock and McCoy into dangerous situations, we are going to.
Series.
Yeah, we will. Keep
that's why in Next Gen they're like, we're gonna let the first officer do that, and Picard stays on the ship most of the time, which makes more sense. But then look at the difference in the makeup of the craft and the time period they're living in. So when Picard is captain, they've taken whole families with them. They're exploratory. Right. You're gonna have not a roguish first officer. The galaxy is very settled.
Right.
He's going between a lot of known places, where Kirk's on the frontier.
That's true.
And in the frontier type of thing, the type of captain that would lead that kind of mission is one that's going to be much more likely to put themselves in danger.
It's more like a swashbuckler kind of role.
Yes.
Like a pirate captain going and doing everything.
Absolutely. And so when you look at it from that perspective, from historical, for lack of a better term, even though it's fictional historical.
Yeah.
And then clearly they learned their lesson.
I'm a Kirk. Everyone knows I'm a Kirk fan.
Sure.
So, not that I dislike Picard by any means, but yeah, I wanted to be Kirk.
I think they're both great in their own right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I'd rather be Picard because I don't want to get in fistfights. I want to read the novel. But
speaking of odd women lines, there's the line about. Actually, it's not that odd. It's when Cochrane sees a woman.
Man.
Even though she was sick, he's like, I don't care. And all I could think of was like, this guy's been in prison for 150 years.
Right.
I mean,
and just saw a woman.
Yeah.
So
I think that's a good segue into something else we've been kind of skirting around, which was the ending of that. How he was like, yeah, I think I'm just going to stay here forever with this one woman because, first of all, he's like, this is the first woman I've seen in 150 years, and let that comment so it was like, food for a hungry man.
Yeah, you're right.
But then he covered that with like, all of you are food for the hungry man.
Right.
I told you there's some cannibalism going on in this episode. I'm just saying.
But the that line that he ended on, or very close to it, was something like, I always sort of like this thing, but now I know I love her because I can see her.
Right.
Like, this is synonymous somehow. This woman
I may be misquoting you. You said he really loved her once she had boobs.
I did not say that.
I said that.
Sorry.
God,
sorry,
that was
Keith.
not me. Yeah.
That was Jimmy-Jerome. So
actually, it was Zoe. No.
That's still kind of in the realm of my point, though. Is just sort of like I don't think he's in a good position to make that kind of decision right now.
Well, and they talk about he obviously loves her as well, the companion when it's in its gaseous or whatever form. I guess it's one of those things where it's almost like, well, you like her. No, I don't. Yeah, you do. She's a gaseous cloud. I have no feelings for her. You like her. That's almost what it feels like. And then once...
Well, maybe, it takes give him a few minutes to adjust to the fact that he's in love with her. Or she's in love with him.
That actually kind of would explain that outburst, too. I like that. The idea how he's like, oh, this thing's been feeding on me for... suddenly he was angry instead of like wanting to protect it, or at least wanting to argue or something.
I think all the motivations of the characters in this episode do make sense when you break it down.
Yeah, they do.
There's no big leaps.
His feeling indebted to her and feelings for her, because, of course, everything's a male-female.
Sure.
Yeah.
At one point, the female cloud probably had a male cloud, because it would follow if there's a male-female.
But then it got tired and left the planet.
Couldn't take it anymore.
Oh, God.
It saw a passing meteor and was like, or comet. I like the tail on that thing.
There were a few scientific lore or whatever things to unpack toward the end there that they kind of dropped in there and kind of left hanging. Still, the idea of the cloud having to be on that planet, that I would have liked more of an explanation as to why, or what would happen if she were in the human body and left. Why would that make a difference?
Yeah, they kind of threw little one-liners at him. Something about her power came from the planetoid, and that coming into the human form, I don't know how she knew that going into the human form took away those powers.
She just did.
It's instinct.
Well, I mean, so right then, if taking away the power should mean that...
Or she watched the rest of her species leave the asteroid and die. Or they all left, and they all were like, yeah, we'll keep in touch. And then they never did it. She's like, oh, they all must have died.
That's a possibility.
But she was the real stick in the mud that they were like, yeah, we're just getting away from her.
But I can't imagine they all left in human bodies either, so...
No, I didn't say they did.
No, I'm just saying, from her logic of, like, I'm going to die if I leave, I would think she would just want to test it out for a day or so. And see, the other thing was Cochrane saying, hey, Kirk, don't tell anybody I'm down here.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they could easily colonize that place. It looked like it was livable.
Oh, they would colonize it if anybody knew Zefram Cochrane was there.
Right. And so, I mean,
and I think he just wanted to be alone with her.
But he wouldn't have to leave then. He wouldn't be lonely. I mean, I think that he's being short-sighted about. Oh, I think we're just going to grow and
he didn't want to have to explain people that his wife was a former Cloud who
he was embarrassed of his
has an echoey voice.
Yeah. He's embarrassed of his echoey voice fetish.
Meanwhile, what about Hedford's family? Who's we don't know what happened. You know what? She had Socarno's disease. Went in on a planetoid.
She died. Yeah. That's what they're gonna say.
She
she died.
slipped and fell, hit her head.
But then Scotty's gonna be like, "Okay, Captain, you said it was like an exciting story. Oh, nah, we just were parked and Hedford died.
You know what? We had a couple. Sworn to secrecy.
Spock and McCoy made out. They got really drunk.
There was a green-skinned woman. Oh, not this story again. That didn't even happen to you, Kirk. That was Pike. I'll be in my quarters.
Well, I mean, that is something pretty convenient that they left out. Is how are they going to explain it? Because they can't just say, well, Hedford, I don't know. We didn't see her.
Say she died.
We never saw her.
I can see them saying that she died, but the question: how do you explain why you didn't bring back her body?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Although I feel like they just say she fell down a bottomless pit. And she's
she's still falling.
She's not dead. She's still falling. Yep, just like that security guard.
So I was distracted at the beginning where they were explaining how the mission was going to work.
Okay.
So was she sick when they picked her up? Mm-hmm. Was that the purpose of where they're bringing her somewhere to get her help, or where was she? I'm not.
That's a good question because it's just kind of like we got to get her somewhere fast. It's like then what are we doing in this shuttlecraft?
Yeah, I don't know if maybe she came down with the illness while she was traveling by shuttle, or they diagnosed her while she was shuttling.
I don't know.
Or shuttling. I don't know. That wasn't.
Sukarno's disease is fast acting, or whatever.
Very fast.
I'm calling it Sukarno, but I think that was the dictator of Indonesia in the 60s.
I have no idea.
Maybe that's why they picked it. I don't know.
I have no idea.
One other note I made. I have a couple more on the companion and Cochrane is. I couldn't decide if it was a love story or if it was like misery. Like, he crashes.
It certainly started that way.
And she's, aren't you Zefram Cochrane? Oh, I love everything you've done. And then he's like, you're not leaving. You're not leaving. And then he's stuck with her. And then it turns out, well, I don't know if it turns out better or not. I guess it does.
Yeah, I guess.
Depends on what you think of the rest of Misery.
There's taking a lot.
You wanted James Caan to stay and marry Kathy Bates,
Well, if he'd grown to love her, I'm wishing for essentially a Stockholm syndrome.
Right? Yeah, that's what you're going for. Yeah.
Is that what happened here?
Zefram Cochrane had Stockholm syndrome. I mean, if you think the Cloud kept him prisoner, I don't think the Cloud kept him prisoner. I think he had no way off the ship, off the rock.
In Misery, she saved James Caan's life, right?
But then wasn't there something about she caused the crash though?
Is there?
I guess it depends on the version. I don't think.
Well, right now,
seem like,
right now it is the Q4 book club book for quarterly book club for It's All Been Done Presents. So read Misery.
People reading the book.
By the time this episode comes out, I'll probably have read it, and then I'd be able to tell you.
I don't remember in the movie. But...
In the movie, it didn't seem like she caused it. I think it seems like happenstance.
Yeah.
I haven't actually seen the movie. I've only seen parts of it, but the parts I saw were terrifyingly.
Yeah.
I love Kathy Bates, so.
But it just kind of dawned on me as I was watching it, and now as we discussed, it's like, oh, geez, it was Stockholm syndrome, but with a happy. Wait, what?
It should have been Kafka's disease if they're going to call it Metamorphosis.
There you go. That's a good call.
Well, I think that if the actress who played Hedford just showed up in Misery and Kathy Bates took over her body, I think you'd be like, all right, well, let's stay here for a while. But
doesn't that become Ghost?
I guess.
Well, speaking of other movies that to me kind of reference this or not, I thought there's some difficult CGI acting in this, and I know we looked at the effects and they really didn't change much, but one is Cochrane whenever he interacts with the Cloud, but when Kirk and Spock are getting choked or whatever, they have to flop around for like 2 to 3 minutes. That was really tough, and
Shatner did that weird face expression when he's in pain.
And DeForest Kelly Bones had to keep yelling even through the commercial break, "Let them go! You're killing them!" I know, I want them to die. That's the whole idea. The Cloud knew what it was doing, but I thought that the couple things about the Cloud that it reminded me. Spoiler alert! We'll get here in about a year. Star Trek: The Motion Picture, where V'ger enters Aaliyah's body in that movie.
Sure.
Very similar to this.
Yes.
And then at the end, you kind of have this cosmic V'ger, Cloud, and Decker all becoming one kind of a thing. So it reminded me of that. The other thing the effect reminded me of was, it wasn't exactly the same, but if you've seen Starman, near the end, there's an effect where he's engulfed by a cloud. And it's more Starship related, but it's a very similar effect, just with, in 1982, it was still great effects. Academy Award nominated performance by Jeff Bridges. But it also reminded me of that, just the...
Which thing?
It wasn't a loving thing, but at the end of Starman, when the spaceship comes.
Don't remember if I saw that.
And of course, Ang Lee is the Hulk, where the Hulk is in love with the cloud.
That's
and
you
jumps
mentioned that,
in.
Yeah. There is some great heart in this, I think. It is. I think it is touching. Again, if it had been 85 minutes, it really could have been a great movie.
Could have been.
Examining all these other things, and I think if it was done now. But again, really good.
2 parts would have been too much, unless there was a subplot on the Enterprise that kept the other cast.
Yeah, like I said, if it was an 85-minute movie, love it. If it was 2 hours, you're right.
I think they could have done 2 hours. They just would have needed to do a plot on the Enterprise. Other than
you're right.
We're gonna look for them. Yeah.
How's it going? Still having fun?
Still having fun.
All right, keep it up.
No, there need to be some other danger that Scotty was facing, which would have been awesome. I would have enjoyed seeing that.
Well, actually, I mean, the thing's built in there with the... they're taking the ambassador somewhere to fix something, so whatever's going out there, the war that's impending.
The piece that wasn't happening.
You could show in the...
the Enterprise could already be there waiting for the shuttlecraft to show up.
Yeah.
And Scotty could end up having to negotiate the peace, which would be hilarious.
Something like that, yeah.
Oh, that'd be so good.
Well, and a couple of the other concepts, I love that they slipped in a couple great conversations between Kirk and Spock. When Kirk asked him to get a weapon, he's like, "Are you going to destroy this?"
Yeah.
He's like, "What?" And Kirk says, "I just want to get off this planet."
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't even call it a planetoid. Calls it a planet.
Sure.
I just want to get out, or maybe just says, "I want to get out of here."
He's a firm believer that Pluto should still be Kirk's one of the few people
holding
in the
on
23rd century.
And then,
McCoy's along the same lines when he's like, "Use the carrot, not the stick."
Yeah.
It reminds me of this version of Star Trek is optimistic, but the warlike side of it, the militaristic side, is always warring with the exploratory side.
Yeah.
Whereas in later versions, they're more exploratory.
Certainly.
Well, and that was the other thing when Kirk's they're gonna zap it or whatever.
Yeah.
And Spock's like, "Are you kidding me? We've never seen something like this. We're gonna examine this. We got to check it out." And Kirk's like, "Well, yeah, but we got to get out of here too."
Wait, ask it about this.
Yeah.
Ask it about that.
Do they have to leave right away at the end? Because I guess they have to get to the other planet, but couldn't they be like, "Hey, tell us just before we leave."
A few questions.
Spock was like, "Leave me here, pick me up, going back."
If I could just mind meld, just give me 10 minutes.
Well, they were anxious to get to their honeymoon. Apparently, they're just like they're already like walking off. Like, all right, well, I guess we're leaving.
Instead of going back to his house.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because
they're gonna honeymoon on the other side.
Cochrane was alone for 150 years. He was 87 before that, so it'd probably been.
He's like 237.
Regardless of the.
He hadn't had sex in a long time.
Yeah. So a couple weeks that I'm crazy. I can't imagine 200 years.
A couple weeks.
Hours instead of days. Days instead of weeks.
Yes.
So
those are my favorite things from the Star Trek film. That's such a good.
Me too.
Oh, so good.
I don't remember that yet.
You will.
We'll get there.
All right. On the subject of those things that Spock would have wanted to ask about, which I was surprised that while he was talking to, I guess the merged Hedford and the companion. She mentioned the maker of all things. Like, oh, that's just something for the maker of all things to do.
Yeah.
And oh, well, sure, whatever. Spock was like, wait, what? Who? Did you know this thing? How does it work?
I just took it at the cloud's religious.
She wished for somebody to come to her, and he crash landed into her planetoid.
That's why she believes in God.
I only had one fashion note. Fashion. I liked Hedford's blue-green ensemble. Reminded me of the Seattle Seahawks. But I read that, so there's that moment after the companion enters her body, she's holding up her scarf to look at. It looks very similar, and that was completely an accident. They just happened to have the scarf.
Oh, really?
They got that separately.
Wow, that's actually really cool.
The director, Sinensky, I think, was like, "Hey, let's try this," and it was like, "Oh, that works." So yeah, that was
written by Gene Elkwood. Oh, I had a costume. So Cochrane, first of all, they made really good jumpsuits 150 years ago.
They did. They were built
that jumpsuit standing up. But
it also was immortal.
What was it?
But it lost its immortality.
But I was gonna say, but if I'm wearing that jumpsuit for 150 years, I'm taking those medals off. Those would get annoying and heavy.
Is that what that was? I mean, was it commemorative?
There were several different medals and things that looked like they were detachable, and I would have taken them off for sure.
Well, the fact that he was able to build that house there out of his wrecked spaceship and a bed and all that stuff. I feel like he could have built a few more outfits.
I mean, sewing's women's work, though.
Oh, well, the companion could have done all that. I mean,
she didn't have arms.
She made the planetoid hospitable. She should have been able to make these things happen.
Well, I mean, maybe he put all that stuff on when he saw that there were people in the show.
Oh, you're right.
He's like, oh man.
You're right.
He
He just walked around naked.
Hey.
Actually, you're right. I'd be walking around naked too.
Yeah, jumpsuit probably too. Yeah.
That's why it was so clean and well preserved. You brush the dust off of it. And then the companion's like, well, what are you doing?
Nothing. Shut your mouth.
Why do you look different? I can't get inside of you as easily with all those clothes. This episode was written by one of our favorites, Gene L. Kuhn.
Yeah.
Rest in peace.
R.I.P.
We'd be seeing Rest in Peace even if it was like 1975. He died real young.
Yeah.
And actually, he quit Star Trek after the second season, so sadly we won't have him around for the
that
third.
explains a lot about season 3.
Yeah.
Even more about season 3.
Yes.
Stay tuned.
Mm.
I only had a couple more notes. Just the whole immortality, this boring thing, just made me think of an Elvis Costello line, which is "Eternity stinks, my darling. That's no joke." I'm still willing to take my chances with it, but I don't think we have a choice. And then finally, my alternate episode was Kirk, Cochrane, and the companion end up in a love triangle. Because when Kirk shows up, the companion should be like, "What? Who is this fresh meat?
Look at those abs.
Hello." I've been listening to this guy 150 years. Who is this guy? And I thought Kirk at some point was going to use his wiles on her, the companion. Once he's using a translator, and it's like, oh, this is a girl. Well, now this is something I can work with.
My alternate episode was Scotty was left in charge, so they had this huge drunken party on the Enterprise. And then Kirk's like, hey, I'm sorry you've been looking for us for days. And Scotty's like, yeah, we didn't just get here. We've been looking for days. I just made that up. What other notes you got, Keith?
Mostly I had a couple things about the conversation itself between Kirk and the companion, the two of them. So, one, it was a little frustrating at first, but sort of like in a satisfying way, in the sense that I was sort of like I wanted to like, Kirk, give me that thing. Like it's like he wasn't asking the right questions. It felt like he could have phrased things a couple. But he kept saying, "Cease to exist." Maybe start to try to introduce the idea of psychology or something.
Yeah, I wish Spock had been like, "Hey, tap out. I got this."
Yeah, it was
the emotion talk.
Yeah, it was like trying to do this logical debate, and just wasn't really getting anywhere.
Yeah.
The other thing was that the device he was holding, that little wand, the translator, almost reminded me of in an episode of Rick and Morty where they had a creature down under the garage that needed the translator to put up to its neck to actually talk. Kind of reminded me of that, but
they probably copied Star Trek.
Oh, I noticed they talked about the planet system, the classifications again. I didn't hear at the beginning if they said anything, but I know certainly when they entered the system, they said Sulu was talking about how there were bodies of sizes A through M. Something about H through M as well. I think when they were trying to narrow down certain other parameters.
Oh yeah.
So I thought that was interesting.
Wasn't that when they're like? Well, that's when her is like, that's a lot of planets to look at.
Yeah. Well, one by one. Here we go.
Don't really have a choice.
Women of Star Trek. Is anybody changing theirs? Steven, you've got Marlena.
All apologies to Melissa Bear, but I'm going to stick with the captain's woman, Marlena.
You keep Marlena. Keith, you have Middle Cat Spa Witch.
I don't even remember. That's hilarious. At the beginning of this episode, and I hate to say this about myself even, is that at the beginning of this episode I would have said absolutely no way. But then the merged Headford, when they had her all soft focus and, her hair, and smiling, it's a horrible thing to say.
You want merged Headford?
Maybe, but no, I'm just tempted. Actually, she looked a lot like Alison Brie there, is what I would have thought.
A little bit.
Like from Community. So.
A little bit. Speaking of Ann Harmon.
Yeah, I definitely had some conflict there, but I'm going with Marlena. Sticking with Marlena.
So you're going merged Headford. I'm going with the cloud itself. No, seriously. I mean, I'm not aging. It can make me whatever I want.
It's true.
It's gonna, yes, you can't have physical sex with it, but it just goes over you and you get your calm, you're satisfied, you're emotionally
And we know you loved her voice through the Universal Translator.
Oh, yes, absolutely. She never nagged because she could talk.
And she would make you immortal.
And she'd make me immortal. I feel like I'm going with the Cloud.
All right.
Before she merged. I would have been like, oh, you merged? Okay, see you later. I'm leaving with Kirk. Colleen still got Commodore Decker.
She likes the old guys.
Yeah.
Oh. Well, she's a married woman now.
She is.
So.
She is.
And then ranking the episode. Where do we want to put it?
Somewhere in the middle?
That's what I'm thinking, too. Let's start with the Changeling. Above or below the Changeling?
What was happening with the change?
That was
Nomad.
Nomad, the robot. Which has some similar concepts. You're talking about humanity and stuff.
I could go either way on that. I think I like it. I like this one better than the Apple.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, this was better than the Apple.
you could take me either way on the Changeling, probably.
Yeah, I'd say definitely below iMud, which is above the Changeling. Yeah, I could go either way on the Changeling. What do you think, Keith?
That's too tough to call at the moment. I can't really remember exactly what happened with Nomad. I mean, feels like Nomad would be more iconic than this.
Nomad was more iconic, but Zefram Cochrane was more iconic.
Yeah.
Well, there's
But
that.
probably largely because of James Cromwell's portrayal of him.
Has he been portrayed in anything yet, or was he in First Contact?
Zefram Cochrane?
James Cromwell.
James Cromwell, yeah, he's in First Contact.
Oh, okay.
I think it would just edge out the Changeling for me.
I could go with that.
I feel like there's more explored in this one in terms
I
of
think so.
humanity and stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know.
There was certainly that missed opportunity about the nature of
There was.
love and so forth, and
Sure.
again, that's certainly probably because of the times. They couldn't really get too edgy with the idea of.
Right.
But I think the Changeling also had some missed opportunity as well.
Yes. Yeah.
So since we're all kind of in,
I can go. Yeah.
Yeah.
should we just put it above?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Since I'm doing it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say those are similar episodes and similar quality.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really surprised Metamorphosis ranked this high. I mean, I knew it was going to be above Catspaw.
Well, sure.
I thought it'd be down like Who Mourns for Adonis would be disgusting.
I felt the same way. The way I remembered it was a lot different than seeing it.
Right now, it's ranked right. We've done 9 episodes, and it's the middle one.
There you go.
So
So come back next week.
where we meet Sarek.
And Amanda.
No. Oh, we do meet Amanda in that
Yeah.
episode, don't we?
Yeah. Mom and Dad.
Not James Frain's Sarek. The original Sarek, Mark
That's right.
Leonard. Yeah, we'll see you next week.
Live long and prosper.